Across the province of Ontario, Queen's Highway number 17 plies for some 1,100 miles through the Precambrian rock of the Canadian Shield. With its east-west course deflected where it climbs the northeast shore of Lake Superior, it appears in cartographic profile like one of those prehistoric airborne monsters which Hollywood promoted to star status in such late show spine-tinglers of the 1950s as Blood Beast from Outer Space or Beak from the Beyond, and to which the fuselage design of the XB-15 paid the tribute of science, borrowing from art. Though its tail feathers tickled the urban outcroppings of Montreal and its beak pecks at the fertile prairie granary of Manitoba, number 17 defines for much of its passage across Ontario the northernmost limit of agrarian settlement, and it's endowed with habitation when at all by fishing villages, mining camps, and timber towns that straddle the highway every 50 miles or so. Among these, names such as Michipicoten and Batchewana advertise the continuing segregation of the Canadian Indian. Rossport and Jackfish proclaim the no-nonsense map-making of the early white settlers, and Marathon and Terrace Bay, gem of the North Shore, betray the post-war influx of American capital. Terrace is the Brasilia of Kimberly-Clark's Kleenex-Kotex Ontario operation. The layout of these latter towns, set amidst the most beguiling landscape in central North America, rigorously subscribes to that concept of northern town planning which might be defined as 1984 prefab, and to my mind provides the source of so compelling an allegory of the human condition as might well have found its way into the fantasy prose of the late Karel Čapek. Marathon is a timber town of some 2,600 souls, and it clings to the banks of a fjord which indents the coast of Lake Superior. Due to a minor miscalculation by one of the company's engineers as to the probable course of the prevailing winds, the place has been overhung since its inception 2 decades ago with a pulp and paper stench that serves to proclaim the monolithic nature of the town's economy, even as it discourages any supplemental income from the tourist trade. Real estate values, consequently, are relative to one's distance from the plant. At the boardwalk level, the company has located a barracks for unmarried and or itinerant workers. Up a block, hotel, cinema, chapel, and general store. At the next plateau, an assortment of prefabs. Beyond them, at a further elevation, some split levels for the junior execs. And finally, with one more gentle ascent and a hard right turn, a block of paternalistic brick mansions that would be right to home among the more exclusive suburbs of Westchester County, NY. Surely the upward mobility of North American society can scarcely ever have been more persuasively demonstrated. It gives a man something to shoot at, I was assured by one local luminary whose political persuasion as it developed was somewhere to the right of Prince Metternich. A few hundred yards beyond Presidential Row, a bulldozed trail leads to the smog-free top of the fjord, but from this approach one is held at bay by a padlocked gate bearing a sign from which, in the manner of those reassuring marquees that used to decorate the boarding ramps of Pan American Airways, one learns that your company has now had 165 accident-free workdays, and that access to the top is prohibited. Up there, on that crest, beyond the stench, one can see the two indispensable features of any thriving timber town, its log chute breaking bush back through that trackless terrain, if I may coin a phrase, and an antenna for the low-power relay system of the Canadian Broadcasting Corporation. These relay outlets, with their radius of 3 or 4 miles, serve only the immediate area of each community. As one drives along number 17, encountering them every hour or so, they constitute the surest evidence that the outside, as we northerners like to call it, is with us still. In the outpost communities, the CBC's culture pitch, Boulez is very big in Batchewana, is supplemented by local programming, which, in the traditions of commercial radio everywhere, leans toward a formula of news on the hour and 55 minutes of the pop picks from Billboard magazine. This happy ambivalence made my last trip along 17 noteworthy, for at that time climbing fast on all the charts and featured hard upon the hour by most DJs was an item called Who Am I? The singer was Petula Clark, the composer and conductor, Tony Hatch.
Buildings reach up to the sky. The traffic thunders on the busy street. Pavement slips beneath my feet. I walk alone and wonder, who am I?
I contrived to match my driving speed to the distance between relay outlets, came to hear it most hours, and in the end to know it, if not better than the soloist, at least as well, perhaps, as most of the sidemen who were booked for the date. After several hundred miles of this exposure, I checked into the hotel at Marathon and made plans to contemplate Petula.
To wake up in the morning and find everything has changed, and all the people that I meet don't wear a frown. But every day is just the same. I'm chasing rainbows in the rain. All the dreams that I believe in let me down.
Who Am I was the fourth in a remarkable series of songs which established the American career of Petula Clark. Released in 1966 and preceded the year before by Sign of the Times and My Love, it laid to rest any uncharitable notion that her success with the ubiquitous Downtown of 1964 was a fluke. Moreover, this quartet of hits was designed to convey the idea that, bound as she might be by limitations of timbre and range, she would not accept any corresponding restrictions of theme and sentiment. Each of the four songs details an adjacent plateau of experience, the 23 months separating the release dates of Downtown and Who Am I being but a modest acceleration of the American teenager's precipitous scramble from the parental nest. And Pet Clark is in many ways the complete synthesis of this experience. At 34, with two children, with three distinct careers, in the 40s she was the British cinema's anticipation of Annette Funicello, and a decade later a subdued chanteuse in Paris Nighteries, and with a voice, figure, and at a respectable distance face that betray few of the ravages of this experiential sequence, she is pop music's most persuasive embodiment of the Gidget syndrome. Her audience is large, constant, and possessed of an enthusiasm which transcends the generations. One recent visitor from the Netherlands, a gentleman in his 60s who had previously assured me that American pop trends were the corrupting inspiration behind last summer's Provo riots in that country, became impaled upon his grandchildren's enthusiasm for My Love. He said it called to mind the spirit of congregational singing in the Dutch Reformed Church, and asked to hear it once again. Petula minimizes the emotional metamorphosis implicit in these songs, extracting from the text of each the same message of detachment and sexual circumspection. Downtown, that intoxicated adolescent daydream, things will be great when you're downtown. Don't wait a minute, for downtown, everything's waiting for you, is, as she tells it, but a step from My Love, that vigorous essay in self-advertisement. My love is warmer than the warmest sunshine, softer than a sigh. My love is deeper than the deepest ocean, wider than the sky. And from the reconciliatory concession of Sign of the Times, I'll never understand the way you treated me, but when I hold your hand, I know you couldn't be the way you used to be. The sequence of events implicit in these songs is sufficiently ambiguous as to allow the audience dipping in privileges. It's entirely possible to start with Who Am I, as I did, and sample Downtown later at one's leisure. But a well-ordered career in pop music should be conceived like the dramatis personae of soap opera. Dipping into the secret storm once every semester should tell you all you really need to know about how things are working out for Amy Ames. And similarly, the title, tempo, and tonal range of a performer's hit should observe a certain bibliographic progression. You thought Frankie had other reasons for It's Been a Very Good Year? I'm inclined to suspect that had the sequence of her songs been reversed, Petula's American reputation might not have gained momentum quite so easily. There's an inevitability about that quartet, with its relentless on-pressing to the experiences of adulthood, or reasonable facsimile thereof, and to a teenage audience whose social sexual awareness dovetailed with their release dates. Petula, in her well-turned-out gidgetry, would provide gratifying reassurance of post-adolescent survival. To her more mature public, she's a comfort of another kind. Everything about her on-stage, on-mic manner belies the aggressive proclamations of the lyrics. Face, figure, discreet gyrations, but above all that voice, fiercely loyal to its one great octave, indulging none but the most circumspect slides and filigree, vibrato so tight and fast as to be non-existent, none of that "here comes the fermata, so hold on" tremolando, with which her nibs Georgia Gibbs grated like squeaky chalk upon the exposed nerves of my generation. Petula panders to the wishful thinking of the older set that, style be hanged, modesty prevails. Leave the child be, Ma, just a touch of prickly heat. The gap between the demonstrative attitude of the lyrics and the restraint with which Petula ministers to their delivery is symptomatic of a more fundamental dichotomy. Each of the songs contrived for her by Tony Hatch emphasizes some aspect of that discrepancy between an adolescent's short-term need to rebel and long-range readiness to conform. In each, the score pointedly contradicts that broad streak of self-indulgence that permeates the lyrics. The harmonic attitude is at all times hymnal, upright, and relentlessly diatonic. Well, come to that, almost all pop music today is relentlessly diatonic. The Max Reger, Vincent Dandy chromatic bent, which infiltrated big band arranging in the late 30s and the 40s, ran its course when Ralph Flanagan got augmented sixths out of his system. But Tony Hatch's diatonicism, relative to Messrs. Lennon-McCartney et al., is possessed of more than just a difference in kind. For the Beatles, a neo-triadic persuasion is, or was, a guerrilla tactic, an instrument of revolution. Annexing such vox populi conventions of English folk harmony as the Greensleeves-type nonchalance of old Vaughan Williams' lethargic parallel fifths, the new minstrels turned this lovably bumbling plain speech into a disparaging mimicry of upper-class inflection. They went about sabotaging the seats of tonal power and piety with the same opportunism that in Room at the Top motivated Lawrence Harvey in his seduction of Sir Donald Wolfett's daughter. Tonally, the Beatles have as little regard for the niceties of voice leading as Erik Satie for the anguished cross-relations of the German post-romantics. Theirs is a happy, cocky, belligerently resourceless brand of harmonic primitivism. Their career has been one long send-up of the equation sophistication equals chromatic extension, the willful dominant prolongations and false tonic releases to which they subject us, Michel notwithstanding, in the name of foreground elaboration, are merely symptomatic of a cavalier disinclination to observe the psychological properties of tonal background. In the Liverpudlian repertoire, the indulgent amateurishness of the musical material, though closely rivaled by the indifference of the performing style, is actually surpassed only by the ineptitude of the studio production method. Strawberry Fields suggests a chance encounter at a mountain wedding between Claudio Monteverdi and a jug band. And yet, for a portion of